Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently returned from his trip to Washington, D.C., where he spoke to both houses of Congress. He then met with President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. While Trump gave a very supportive statement for Israel to finish the war quickly, Vice President Harris gave the following statement following her meeting with Netanyahu. Breaking! Vice President Harris speaks after speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Harris calling for an immediate ceasefire deal to free the hostages. The Vice President saying she will not be silent about the suffering in Gaza, the devastating loss of life, and the dire humanitarian crisis. And here's the video.
500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. Thanks to the leadership of our President, Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination. There has been hopeful movement in the talks to secure an agreement on this deal. And as I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. So to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire, and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home. And let's provide much-needed relief to the Palestinian people. And ultimately, I remain committed to a path forward that can lead to a two-state solution. And I know right now it is hard to conceive of that prospect, but a two-state solution is the only path that ensures Israel remains a secure, Jewish, and democratic state, and one that ensures Palestinians can finally realize the freedom, security, and prosperity that they rightly deserve. And I will close with this then. It is important for the American people to remember the war in Gaza is not a binary issue. However, too often the conversation is binary, when the reality is anything but. So I ask my fellow Americans to help encourage efforts to acknowledge the complexity, the nuance, and the history of the region. Let us all condemn terrorism and violence. Let us all do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind. And let us work to unite our country. I thank you.
Madam Vice President.
Now, I think the best commentary to Harris's statement on Israel is from former US Ambassador to Israel David Friedman. And here I'm quoting his tweet on X. Well, there you have it. Kamala Harris offers her take on the war in Gaza. No condemnation of Hamas. Just some platitudes about complexities, nuances, human suffering, peace and security, and a plea for a two-state solution. Madam Vice President, there was a Palestinian state in Gaza. Not a single Jew or Jewish soldier was there when this war began. In 2005, Israel evacuated all its soldiers and citizens from Gaza, handing full control of the territory to the Palestinians in the hope of peace. And the Palestinians in Gaza then elected Hamas. Hamas received billions of dollars in international aid that the Trump administration cut off, but you and Joe Biden restored. It used those funds to build terror tunnels and shoot rockets at Israeli civilians. And on October 7th, 2023, it committed the most barbaric and despicable acts of violence against Jews since the Holocaust. I noted not a word from you in your speech regretting that your administration funded Hamas terror directly and through sanctions relief on Iran. Your push for a Palestinian state at this time is tone-deaf and a betrayal of the Jewish lives lost and still missing from this heinous assault. It also conflicts with the recent vote of the Israeli Knesset, which overwhelmingly rejected a Palestinian state. You are no friend of Israel, and you have exhibited a shocking lack of command of the relevant facts. Your insensitivity to Jewish suffering and failure to attribute good and evil where they belong means you will never help to bring peace to this troubled region. All those in the region who seek peace, Israelis, Arabs, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, now know after hearing this speech that you are not the one to achieve it. Now, many of the people defending Kamala Harris today in reaction to all of the claims being made against her policy-wise, since she is now the Democratic nominee for the presidential elections, well, they are spending time not trying to refute any of the claims being made against her, whether with regards to her policy stance on Israel or on U.S. domestic issues. Rather, they are spending time trying to delegitimize all voices against her by saying that she is a black woman, and therefore anything said against her is either sexist or racist. Have you heard any of that? Well, if you do hear any of those claims, then this following video is for you, and make sure to share it.
I'm going to just be real honest with this. She's a black woman.
Yeah, because they skin folk, not Kim folk.
I think it goes back to what somebody was saying, where it's not voting for someone, but majority will vote for somebody else just to
hold on. Let me man this out.
I think majority
is it only because she a black woman?
Yeah.
Do you not see how that's a bad idea?
Elaborate.
Okay, so we're in 3 proxy wars with some of the most powerful leaders in the world. She failed at the border, in which we have an estimation of 15 to 20 million people illegally into this country. That is literally overtaking and bankrupting Chicago to the tune of over $400 million per year, and they are in a deficit. Oakland is going out of business. San Francisco ditto. California, $65 billion deficit. New York, they're literally cutting trash, in which they are the rattiest, dirtiest city, and they've taken up resources as far as free healthcare, free hotels to the tune of $600 a day. They're literally taking over your schools. Your taxpayer dollars are going to fund the migrant crisis. She was supposed to be in charge of this. We have a failing economy. Every single day I see people getting on the internet talking about $30 an hour is the new minimum wage, because inflation is out of control. At one point, it was at almost 10%, depending on what city that you in. She has no policy, no record to stand on. One of the biggest things that she did in her career was lock up more black men than ever before. But we sitting here and vote her in office on identity politics. The very person that she was under as far as the president of the United States of America, she called him racist during a debate, which shows you how fake she is. And the only thing that we can stand on from a policy perspective is whether or not she's black and she's a woman. We did that during the Obama administration, and he didn't do anything for black people. As a matter of fact, y'all complain because the only person that he did, or the only group of people that he really stood for, is the alphabet community, and that's his landmark thing that he's still standing on today. So the only thing that we have to stand on is identity politics. That shit didn't work with Tiffany Henyard in Dayton, Illinois. It didn't work with Karen Bass. It didn't work with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It didn't work with Brandon Johnson that then took over her position in Chicago. It didn't work with Andre Dickens in Atlanta. It didn't work with Eric Adams in New York. It doesn't work across the country. Every single Democratic city is a hellhole. And we sitting here talking about identity politics?
You can't say it better than that. And that had to do with domestic policy. Those are the kind of public discourse we should all be seeing and hearing about the elections, not the identity politics. And finally, nobody should ignore this unbelievable parody posted by Elon Musk, which has been seen by over 129 million people, or views.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking. The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden. Do you think the country went to shit over the past 4 years? You ain't seen nothing yet.
Personally, I think it is clear who people should be voting for in the upcoming elections. Regardless, be part of sharing this factual information to help educate others. And especially when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people, since we are the front line for the whole freedom-loving world. So if you want to be safe in your countries, in your communities, you have to stand proud and tall with Israel and the Jewish people. Because if the Marxist Islamist revolution is allowed to get away with killing Jews and destroying the Jewish state of Israel, well then it is going to be harder for your country, wherever you live around the world, to stop the Marxist Islamist revolution by you in overtaking your countries and your ways of life. So everyone, stand up for Israel, stand up for the Jewish people against the growing Jew-hating anti-Semitism in the name of Palestine, which is all really the Marxist Islamist revolution to destroy the freedom-loving world. If you are not yet a subscriber to my Pulse of Israel videos, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And if you believe that the messages from our videos are important, then help us get them seen by many more people, because we are heavily censored on all social media channels. We're out there, but they play with our numbers. They make sure that we're not seen as much. So it is thanks to donations from people like you, our viewer base, that we're able to ensure our videos get seen. So every once in a while, just go to pulseofisrael.com and click on the donate button. In the meantime, signing off from our beautiful, ancestral, biblical, and indigenous homeland, the land of Israel, in our beautiful, biblical, ancestral, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. Shalom, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.